So
What are you smoking, man? Is that a vape or
yeah.
it just? All right, yeah, man. So before I hit the record button, I was talking about this guy. I mean, you know, I, I sent out I broadcasted a message to all the boys and told them, hey, let's go watch John
Oh
Wick
boy.
4. And
Slowly you
before,
realize that most of the boys are whipped.
yeah, they could not make it, so I ended up with like a guy who basically has not, a guy who recently had a kid, and they for the last I think 2 years have not seen an inside of a cinema. So
Wow,
they
that's
were just
good.
glad to get out. And the other guy, he was a very quiet one. It's like one of those uncomfortable people where you kind of feel like you have to do all the talking. Like for a guy who talks a lot, even I felt uncomfortable because man, like he wouldn't say anything. We watched the movie. During the movie, I kind of gave him a nudge, just like, "Oh man, that's a good sequence or whatever." And like he's like, "Yeah," like he's a very kind, like very smooth, like a very cool cat kind of a guy. And then once he sat in the car, I don't know, driving, he's like, "Yeah, that was a nice movie." He's like, "Hmm, it was a nice movie." I was like, "What did you think?" Like, by the way, this is completely spoiler, so we're gonna be talking about like John Wick in its
Oh yeah,
totality.
for sure. I don't care.
And yeah, so I talked about like I asked him like just a couple questions like here and there, and just to get him going. He would just answer the question in a yes or no fashion. That's it. And I was like,
Wow.
fuck, man, like this, like it's just hard to sometimes have a conversation with people who do not want to add anything to the conversation at all. Like they just sit there, man. And even when this guy comes over, he just sitting there. But anyway, he's a new. I think some people are just kind of, I guess, introverts, and he is someone who I've recently met
Hmm.
through the missus. His wife and my wife are best friends.
Okay.
So yeah, he's come down from. I mean, she's come down from Karachi and everything, and he's also from Karachi as well. But he's a soft-spoken fella, and
Hmm.
he was like, "Yeah, it's a good movie and everything." And then, you know, in usual, you know, fashion, once I started driving, I was on the highway. I started talking to him. Like I started going deep down the rabbit hole. Like, oh man, the way they work with the lights and the production design, and maybe it meant this, maybe it meant that. It was just kind of you could see like on his face, he was just completely confused. Like just going over his head. I was like, all right, maybe I'll just stop this and maybe have a chat with you about it. But to begin with,
Yeah.
before we come to part four, I recently watched the first one. I kind of watched, I think 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. I watched the first one at someone else's place,
Hmm.
and came back, had a chat with you that you were going to watch John Wick 4, and that how you rediscovered these movies in a different from a different perspective.
Yep.
And you said, okay, let's watch. I'm gonna watch all of them. I've still not watched the third one. And then I went back and actually finished the first one, spent 2 days watching the second, and the third one was straight after that. Like as soon as I finished I just had the bit of the ending left on the second one. Finished that, jumped on the third one, and just watched the entire thing in one setting. Like I think
Nice.
that one and two have these pauses in there where kind of momentum kind of breaks a little bit, but
Hmm.
three just really does it in an amazing fashion. And then the fourth
Hmm.
one, obviously, I think they just went balls to the wall, like no
This is the
stone
last
unturned,
one. Let's do. Give it
complete
all.
gangster. Yeah, just gave it all. It was like fucking like I don't know. There are not that many sequels that actually progressively get better. It's broken that thesis of a great how each sequel is better. Like Indiana Jones or Star Wars, you look at all these movies, right? As they progress, they kind of became not that great. Whereas here,
Yeah.
it just goes in the reverse order, bro. It gets better every time they come out. Even Fast and
Yeah.
Furious, they had that momentum in the beginning, but they kind of got good. But then I think after the third or the fourth one or whatever, they got their mojo. But then after that, they just went to shit. James
Yeah.
Bond probably is a kind of a franchise where in certain they've had now what 50 or 40 movies or something like that. I've lost count. Over time,
Who cares?
there have been, but they're a bit their graph goes up and down. They're a bit like that. It's
Yeah.
like a bell curve, and then again there's a second bell curve. So they're more like, for example, Skyfall for me was
Hmm.
the in the Daniel Craig James Bond franchise. The
Hmm.
Skyfall, I think, was the peak,
The top.
the top. And then at that time, Sam Mendes came, and I think Roger Deakins. But overall, the story, the character, and the thing is, you want the right amount of story, not too much story in an action movie, right? And it had just the right amount, not too much for a James Bond movie. And same thing with the Sean Connery stuff or the previous Bonds, that were played by other actors. They've all had those peaks, and like Pierce Brosnan, I think he had a peak. I think in the second or third movie, and after that, it just kind of just went ridiculous. Like it was just like such a shoddy, lazy style of filmmaking, very bad CG and just bad, cringy dialogues and montage. Now coming
But
back to
that's
this
James
thing,
Bond.
but as James Bond. Now coming back to, but I think that's what is going to happen, right? So the people who are going to make James Bond are planning to look for their next Bond, okay, and coming up, because what happened with the Daniel Craig saga is when they came out with it, they were completely influenced by Bourne, the Bourne movies. The first two Bourne movies, or the first Bourne movie was out, and they were like, you know what, we want it to look a bit like Bourne. And then as Bourne movies came out, James Bond came out, they started competing with each other in terms of action and the way they shot it and everything. So heavily influenced by that. But now what question remains is John Wick going to influence James Bond, which it will, it has to, because that's the kind of action people want to see. That's the kind of stunts and wire. I mean, there's not much wire work. Actually, there's no wire work at all. I think maybe there's one small scene in John Wick 4 or maybe 3 that might have used a couple of the wire. The hardness is more for safety or whatever, not for actually doing all those big, Asian or Matrix style moves where people are flying up in the air and doing all these big, you know,
I don't like that.
sequences. I don't like it. It looks fake. I think problem is it's not the problem is not the flying. The problem is more like the misuse of it. It's like John.
Overuse.
If you if yeah, overuse of it or the wrong way of using it. Like if you look at the John Woo movies, the Hong Kong ones, and you look at the gunplay and the way the amount of acting the stuntmen actually put into it. It's like getting shot is also a talent, when you get shot and how you react to a shot and like the way you fall onto yourself, or you fall on the ground, or you're falling off a chair, or you're falling off a building balcony, stairs, whatever. That is all talent, bro. That is all talent. Like falling and making it look natural is very very hard. And I think the Hong Kong people, they got it back then. In the 90s, they had shotguns and fucking pistols, overcoats, all that shit. And Matrix,
John Wick was the whole Hong Kong team was there.
yeah, the
Everybody,
whole thing was there.
especially, didn't you see the part three, right? There's this part where he's almost about to kill the last boss, the assassin, and they were like two guys from the Japanese gang,
Oh man,
and
that one, yeah, 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 yeah.
and the guys go,
And they're making
"Nice
fun
to
of
see
him. They're
you,"
like, I respect Mr. John Wick, Yeah,
and
yeah,
then they
yeah, those
act
guys,
like
yeah.
they got hit.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And then, but he doesn't kill them.
Mhm.
He tells them, "I'll be seeing you," and he just tells them, like, you know what, stay down, because if you get up, you're not gonna make it, right?
Yeah.
And then, yeah, they walk away. But the thing is that I think the reason he let them get away is because they showed respect. Maybe that was the reason. I don't know why. Because he usually doesn't
No,
let anybody get away.
also, if you so the basic theme of John Wick, okay, if you look, especially with the four one, is there's three or four words they say all the time: consequences,
Cardinal
right?
rules.
Like
Yeah.
there's rules, but then there's like a special brotherhood that we see in the first part, like first part
Yeah.
of the film with the Japanese, what's his name? That's a famous guy. And um, so I feel that somewhere
In
down the
part
line,
four, you mean, or part
in
two?
part four, but in part three,
Yeah.
the guys who were like acting like they were, you know,
Big
they didn't
fans.
want to hit him. Yeah, they had this
Yeah.
knives and
The
everything. They
Japanese.
didn't hit him.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
They didn't hit him.
Yeah.
Was
Yeah.
because probably John Wick at some level didn't hurt them, or he
Yeah.
saved them. It's like I
Mm-hmm.
have no beef with you.
Mm.
He's only going with the people he has beef with. Just
Correct.
like a certain level of chivalry, that
Mm-hmm. Restraint. Restraint is
yeah,
there. A code. code of honor,
And
honor among, yeah,
yeah, you see Mr. Nobody is like a fucking capitalist,
yeah,
you know.
Mr.
I like
Nobody.
it. Yeah,
I
and
think, man,
then
I would love to see a mini series of him, like a television version, not a movie, because I think he's got so much backstory that you can feel that there will be that if you made a movie, it'd probably do well. But I think that
I
if you had a
I think they should just leave it, dude. Like,
just leave it the way it is.
bro, listen, I'll tell you something. Is there a Mona Lisa part two?
No, there is not. You mean the
Why?
portrait, right?
Yeah, you. The problem is that this spin-off or even the sequels, prequels, spin-off, they're all made to utilize the same expenses that they did on the project and milk it. So they have everything ready, they have the team, they have everything, they have the sets. Now let's use this set until people stop watching. This is what I feel, right? Like, I don't know. That's how I feel. Like, if I was Chad Stahelski, or if I'm pronouncing his name right, if I was Chad, I would be like, you know, I don't want to touch it. Nobody makes another John Wick. Let's just keep it that way. Let's not let's make something new. Let's think out of the box. I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
I think that's my case against it. Is like, I mean, Mr. Nobody is amazing, okay? But is he amazing? Really? He's amazing because the story is amazing. The character development between, what John Wick is amazing. There's this opposite, a new kind of a assassin out there who's a black guy who looks like a hobo, you know, and he also has a dog, you know.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
You
That
see,
was a
there's
good
there's
touch. Yeah.
some parallels that they created.
And the great thing is that they bought everything that they had in the previous movies. Basically, it's like a video game, bro. Like, I don't know. The best example is a video game, because if you watch your kids play and everything, what you realize is that great games, what they do is they take all the things that are from the, because they're mechanics, they're tricks and mechanics or tools of the trade. If you use, let's say, a certain style of lenses to shoot your second movie, you would carry it forward, right? It's like if the next Top Gun does come on, they will use all the learnings they had from the previous Top Gun movies to up the ante. I mean,
Hmm.
they might upgrade the cameras, but the idea is once you're inside the cockpit, you cannot go away from it. You have to show that. So, like for example, they had a lot of the knife fights in part three, right? They had throwing knives and stuff like that, right? So they, instead of, yes, they have fights now with swords, but they still kept the whole idea of throwing projectiles. They still have the idea of, okay, let's still throw swords, let's still throw stuff. So once they have certain sequences where the person is attacking you from range, they've kept it. And same thing with the animals. So they had Harryberry, I think, in the third one with the dogs. A lot of people appreciated that they used. The idea is not how it is unrealistic. What they show with Halberry, it's unrealistic. But in the back of your mind, you know that these are real animals. It's not CG, and how they must have coordinated the whole thing to get the dogs to work with with the actors, the stuntmen, the camera. There's not just one camera there. It's like multiple cameras happening,
Of course.
lights, and it is multi-level. So there are people upstairs and downstairs, and the entire set is quite designed to keep to to match that choreography. So it's like a dance, you know. And the first time when I saw the third one, I didn't really appreciate the whole thing. I was like, "What the fuck is this? Like, Halberry is not doing anything, and dogs are doing all the work." But that's not the point, man. Like, you're completely reading it wrong. And they now carried that forward because they're not going to bring her character back, but they
Uh-huh.
added the dog sequences in there. And now you're more focusing on one particular dog, and that dog also is kind of a character now. It
Yeah.
has the way he looks and the way he walks and the way he makes that puppy face and everything. Like, there's that communication going on with the. Oh, it's brilliant, bro. So I
So,
think,
mm,
yeah. What do you think?
yeah, I feel that the beauty of this film was that it's action film, but for some reason it has this undertone of like being a little philosophical at such a deep level that anybody would get it. Like,
Yeah,
and the
yeah,
jokes, the in jokes, and the comebacks,
yeah, yeah.
everything. Like, like, what's his name? What's the, Iron, oh, is it Martin, right? Martin?
Marquis, the
No, no,
French fella,
not,
you mean?
not the French fella, the
Winston.
guy, the manager of New York.
Oh yeah, Lance Reddick. Yeah, I can't remember. Sharon, I think his name.
No, not
His name is Sharon.
Sharon.
What is his name?
No,
No,
Ian
Sharon.
McKellen or something. The guy from Deadwood. What's his name?
Oh, that guy, Winston. So his character is
Vince.
Winston, but Ian
Yeah,
McShane. Ian McShane is, I
Ian
think, is the actor.
McShane. Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah,
that
fuck,
guy.
bro,
Now,
he
if
was
you look at it, yeah, like it's like he's playing a game.
correct, man. I was about to talk to you about this. So, what do you think? I kind of felt the story is more about him than John Wick. John Wick is a pawn, and this whole thing was planned. Like I kind of felt like he wanted him to shoot him in the. So don't worry about the first movie. First movie is just like a prologue. It's like a test movie. It's something like a pilot that you will show the studio
I,
to say, look, this is what we're gonna make if this does successful. So I think the first movie is the second movie. To me, first movie is the second movie. And in that one, when he tells him, "Don't do it, John. Don't shoot him. Don't break the cardinal rule," right? I think he wanted him to shoot him. He was tired of the fucking high table. He was tired of all the bullshit that he had to deal with in the hierarchy and everything. So the my theory is like hidden. Most people on the internet do not see it that way, but I kind of felt that it was Winston who wanted him to shoot him. He knew that John Wick will shoot him. Because if you think about it, he shoots him, and then after that, he does not tell anybody about it, keeps him safe, and then he gives him a grace period of 2 hours or 1 hour or something,
no.
and then he reports him in. Like that whole thing is, I think, was Winston's thing. I kind of felt that Winston was controlling the real puppet master. He was
Yeah.
doing the whole thing.
Yeah. So I feel no. To me, it's like Winston was
Opportunist.
like the father figure
Oh yes, he
who
is. Yeah.
he's the father figure, but he's not. But what you see is like there's all they're warriors and then there are kings. You get what I mean? So then there's Lawrence Fishburne, the king, I'm the king, and the way he's the most like
Underground. Yeah.
he's a homeless, but the way
Yeah.
he speaks is so eloquent, you know.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, listen, I don't want to play that game. I'm doing my game down here, but because they came and messed with me, they did not respect me. I'm gonna, you know, get back at them and help you at any level to get back at them. So I think, you know, uh, it's an amazing film. I love it, and I think the action sequences. At some moment, I'm like, "Fuck, okay, to another action sequence, right?"
Some of them are a
But,
bit longer. Yeah. Some of them are a
but,
bit longer.
but, as soon as it starts, it's like, fuck it, it's coming at you, and you're like, okay, I don't mind it. It's cool, you know.
Mm, mm.
But the last hour is so cool.
The
Like it
last
was
hour,
just
the staircase. I think. Yeah. I mean,
mm,
the stairways or
the
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 one with
the abandoned
the
abandoned building, one with
oh yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
shot.
yeah, yeah, man. Oh my God. And then he falls onto the car and everything. That one there. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That
Another thing
that
is that
that
I
made
kind of
me.
noticed. Yeah, he doesn't. He's kind of they shown him this character who doesn't really have any abs or muscles or huge body frame, but he's able to handle a lot of I guess
Beating.
trauma to the body and he yeah
It's
so
Baba Yaga.
yeah, he's Baba Yaga.
Oh,
So
and who I liked the most in the movie? Who did you like the most in the movie? I mean, John Wick is John Wick. Who was according to me? I mean, I'll tell according to me, but who do you like the most in the film?
I would say I think Mr. Nobody was up there, but I think the fact that he just sat there and watched the duel between Donnie Yen and for me it was Donnie Yen. I think I like Vince. Actually, it's too hard, but I think Donnie Yen was really good. I
You
think
know
he
who
was
I like the most
fantastic. Yeah,
as an overall character was the
yeah.
boss in the Berlin.
The girl. Is that the
No,
one? Oh, no, no, then which
the
one?
the
Oh
the
yeah,
fat
dude.
guy.
Yeah, actually, you know what? That guy was really good as well. My God, yeah. Scott
Yes.
Atkins. Scott Atkins.
Oh, I mean,
I don't know the name of the boss, but his real
it
name is
was like
Scott Atkins.
I was almost watching
That whole
Batman.
sequence, man. The entire thing was perfect, man. From beginning till the end, the whole thing.
The I was like I was in a comic book movie for a second, you know, for a
Exactly,
second.
bro. Dude, he played it like how I would imagine Penguin to be in Batman. That's how you fucking would play that character. You know what I mean? I mean,
Yeah.
Penguin is a little bit different. He's more deceiving and everything, but I think, um, but it is good. I'm happy for Scott Atkins because he's done, I think, I don't know, dude. You can look on the internet, 40 movies or something he's done. And he's always played he's done the straight to video kind of movies, if you understand what I mean. And he's this stuntman who became an actor. And he never really got to use his acting chops like he never really got the right director. Now this director understands his strengths, and he very much gave him an amazing role to play.
Dude, I didn't even know who this guy was to start off with. I
Dude, he's
went
super
in,
fit. He's super fit. Got like fucking 9 packs. He's that fit, and he's tall as a motherfucker. I mean, you
but
saw the kicks, right? The way he like fought
I
and
get it.
everything. That's so
But think,
yeah.
see, I didn't know who Scott Adkin
So it
was.
was believable for you, the
So
character
for
and
me, it
everything.
was
Yeah.
like,
So you
who's
thought
this
he was.
actor?
So you thought he was like a big, heavy, fat bastard. Like that's how
No,
you thought he was.
no, I knew he
So you
was
knew that he
someone
had some
thinner.
makeup or something. Okay.
Initially, I thought he was a fat guy,
Okay.
some fat Turkish guy, okay,
Okay.
in
Okay.
Berlin.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then when he starts fighting, and I see the way he's fighting, I'm like, that's not a fat guy.
Yeah,
This is
he did look like something from the Mediterranean, one of those like Turk or Tunis
yeah,
or Moroccan or like Arab
yeah.
background Algerian, and like
And the
especially the
Mexi
cards and everything, the whole thing,
and
dude, it was just
also the
amazing.
Mexican standoff was different than most Mexican standoffs we have accustomed to. It was like almost Quentin Tarantino at that moment. It's like how you if you mesh Quentin Tarantino with like a comic book movie, you know?
Correct. And the other thing is that the Mexican standoff is at a poker table. It cannot get more Mexican standoff than that. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, it's like
it's
the
very well done.
Inglorious
Yeah.
Bastards, right? The scene in
Yeah,
Inglorious
but I
Bastard.
think if I compare both of them in terms of entertainment value, the John Wick one comes out on top. But
Really
then again, yeah, man, because the Constantino one, I think
was too
you
intense.
knew, no, for for the way the movie is, it's amazing. It builds to that. Okay, first of all, as soon as you walk in, and the first hint you get that they've been discovered, it stays its welcome too long before the shootout begins. So the first dialogue gives you an idea that bhai idhar na goli chalne wali hai. Like they're gonna go fucking for it, right? But then they delay the whole thing. The gun is under the table. They're talking, and they're slowly pulling out guns and everything. They're still talking. There's too much talking going on. Here, as soon as fucking shit hit the fan, the card came out. You know what I mean? In John Wick, like if the
Yeah,
card goes
it's like it's a
missing,
good.
they're not wasting time talking. This whole bullshit about like talking. So I think with coincidence, it's a different thing. It's a character driven. This is action driven. If there is think about it throughout the movie, everything something is always moving. Something is always moving. Sometimes the
Yeah.
dog. Sometimes it's always this continuous movement. He comes out of the train and खड़े खड़े बात करते हैं. They don't sit down and have a chat. Throughout the 3-4 movies, you'll hardly see them having a sit down and having a chat. Only a few scenes at the end where they actually have a sit down. And once you sit down, it breaks momentum. So the whole idea is if you're going to sit down, there needs to be movement. Like the scene is constantly moving. It's like Mad Max Fury Road. There's constant movement going on. That's the success of a great action movie. This is not like Die Hard or RoboCop or one of those movies, those 80s, 90s style. It's completely different. It's a very kinetic energy, isme. So even when people are talking to each other, there is things going on. They always have something in their hand. If you look at Winston, every time he's talking, he's got something in his hand. He'll have something, a wine glass or something. There is a secret language, visual language going on, And same thing with Sharon. I think the Lance Reddick, the black guy, the French, no African. I mean, he plays as an African. I mean, I don't know where he's from, but his accent is very African. So, every time he talks, there is certain kind of presence and movement. Like even when he's, it's like every time someone comes and they're about to show a badge or they're fucking trying to pull rank. It's all about pulling rank. So he's about to pull rank. What they do is that they push forward a badge, or they always push things forward. There's a whole language to it, and then they'll focus on it. It'll be a badge, like the educator, the educator. I think in part three,
Educated. Yeah.
educator. She comes in, and then the marquee. They have badges. So there's a whole language and world building going on, and
It's kind of fun though. Like,
it is fun to watch. It's a new way of trying new things. But I think Winston's character, man, it is. I kind of felt that he was doing the whole thing. And you know what? My belief is they didn't bury John Wick. He's not dead. They just built a gravestone and
yeah,
they just have a grave there, and it says thing. He's gone underground basically because he knows. I mean, makes sense, right? If John Wick survives, the table will come for him. Like they've let him go now, but the table will come for him anyway. And it's weird. They went to war against the table, but at the end of the day, they settled it with a very old code system or whatever
but
it is.
that's the politics. That's what. See, if you
That's
look
what the
at
politics is. Yeah,
part three,
yeah,
just before Winston starts shooting John Wick, you will see that the educator, what's his name? Educator, kind of figures out that, you know, John Wick's about to kill her
yeah,
if
yeah.
this continues, because that's what he's gonna do anyways. He's not afraid of the table. The whole team is not afraid of anything, right? So now Winston has the upper hand, or he has a card to play.
Hmm.
And she's like, yeah, I think you should be okay with it. And like, yeah,
Hmm.
I'm okay with it. And then, you know,
Hmm. Hmm.
let's get rid of John Wick, the problem,
Hmm.
and then we'll survive. Knowing very clearly that John Wick had the suit,
Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
that does not,
He shoots him. Yeah.
I sound like a kid right now wearing a baseball hat. Um,
Oh, Spider-Man
but
had this, insane ability that allowed him to like, handle all that pressure. You know? Yeah.
yeah, but let's just say for the story, for the world, it was interesting, and uh, so yeah, I think that might be the case. I think that
Thing is, in a way, it is a superhero movie. It has all these characters. It has the elements of the superhero. So if you think about, back in the day, you used to tell me that, the great thing about Batman, all these things, they will show you his stuff, his armor. He used to put his belt on, put his fucking mask on, put his shit on. They'll always show it to you in the movie, right? In John Wick, they did that as well. In a way, every time they introduce a suit, or they show that, I think that he goes to, in part three or part two, he goes to get a suit made, and the
yeah,
tailor
in
says,
Italy,
"Sir, we have Kevlar suiting and all that." Like, in a way, they
Italy,
didn't go very. It's a, it's a, it's a dad, it's a dad movie. Your dad would want to see Batman and those kind of movies, but without all the extra layering. They don't want to geek into. They don't. They want you to get the hero to the action. They don't want to waste too much time thinking about the technicalities of like this car can do that many RPMs and fucking this armor has this much strength and it's Kevlar and carbon or whatever, like the way they do in the Chris Nolan movies, right? So there is not that much hero worship going on. It's more like RoboCop. RoboCop may they'll never tell you all the stuff he has, what it's all made of. It's just like, oh shit, RoboCop is here. Oh shit, John Wick is here. Baba Yaga is here, right? Or like that hero worship thing is kind of was there in the 80s. Now it's all gone. Like even in the John Wayne movies, when the sheriff of the town used to come over, people were like, holy shit, this guy's here. He like shit is about to go down. Like that whole thing is there. Even with Unforgiven, when he comes in that last sequence, I mean, it's not much different, bro. Unforgiven. If you look at the character of dude, it's the exact same fucking thing. It's a new version for a new
Yeah.
audience, a new generation, right? That
Yeah.
guy, when at the end he comes in, what does he tell him? I'll see you in hell, William Money. You कहता है, yeah. And then he shoots him. It's the exact same thing. He comes in, he tells him, oh, you're the killer of
I'm
women and
damned. Yeah.
children. कहता है, yes, I am like that. I am damn, and I'm here to kill you. William Money उसको बोलता है, कहता है, yes, I've killed everything. That's crawling on
That
earth. I've killed
works.
women, children. I've killed everything. And I'm here to kill you, right? So like, and then he's got this whole, it's like fuck, bro. It's like it was amazing that last sequence. And I think, and then he sits at the bar, he has his drink, and then he rides into the sunset.
He gets
That
out
also
with the
reminds me of him.
with the horse and the American flag in the
Yeah,
back.
yeah, yeah.
When it's raining, and
Yeah,
it
you gotta
tells
watch that movie
the
again. Yeah, after all you motherfuckers. If you come back, and if you don't bury him, if you don't bury my friend Ned properly, I'll come back and burn this entire town. Like he says that, right? So I think it's the same thing. And bro, before what the funny thing is, before the movie started, right? We got there with our popcorn and shit. Um, Seats are still shit. Popcorns are still too fucking salty, and the Coke is always watered down with all that ice. But the joy of watching trailers is kind of still there if the trailer's done right. And the good thing was there was a Liam Neeson trailer.
mm,
The trailer is the movie was Commuter. I'll tell you how I'm going to link it into John Wick. It's a guy who's got two kids. He leaves the family, kisses the wife goodbye. And he's headed to work and he's going to drop the kids to school. Gets in the car, puts a seatbelt on. Kids are at the back. He's got his Merc. I think it's the M series or G series or whatever. And he's driving an SUV. And guess what? He gets a call, tells him there's a bomb in the fucking car. and and then they show you all these sequences of action and jumping off bridges and fucking the car, and he's constantly in the car. And from the car, he's doing all the acting. All the sequences are from the car. You can imagine it's like Speed, the Keanu Reeves movie, but with that. But as I was watching, it had a very similar look to the John Wick style of action. And when I was watching, I was like, you know what? This John Wick was made for Liam Neeson, but he's too old to play this character. That's why. If this John Wick movie that come out back in early
well,
2000s.
I think initially they had the idea of having an older John Wick.
Yeah, yeah. So it looks exactly like it was made for Liam Neeson. Because when I looked at Liam Neeson, I'm not saying they offered him the movie, but I'm saying like if I had a choice to cast an actor like who could play the role and if it was a little bit more versatile 10 years ago or whatever, I would pick Liam
So
Neeson, bro.
I would say the reason people like John Wick is that we are so accustomed to Keanu Reeves' campy
Yeah,
acting.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Like
But the thing, he
like
only
come
says,
on.
yeah, he doesn't say anything more than that. That's another thing.
Yeah, it's like yeah. Even the ending of part three is like with
Yeah.
bloodshot eyes and yeah, and then
Yeah.
so and when he kills the high table, one of the high table, the Moroccan guy.
But I feel that what they've done is it is such a well written. I think the guy who wrote the John Wick movies, I was looking into him, and dude, he basically is one of those people who've kind of worked very hard in the industry and all has been waiting for that opportunity, right? He got the opportunity, he made it, and then he completely capitalized on that as a writer. मतलब the director, everybody was involved. They capitalized on it. They said, "कि भाई, इससे अच्छा chance हमें वापस नहीं मिलेगा. So let's just do it the best we can." And in terms of writing, they also thought about the studio, what the studio. It's a perfect commercial endeavor. मतलब in sense that they thought about, okay, we can make all these movies. How can we do spin-offs? How we can do television and do justice to each character that is in the movie at the same time. That you got the right amount of taste for it, and if that character returned in a different movie, you would still go to watch it. But if they did not return, you still be happy with it. Like Mr. Nobody, for example. If they never came back again, it'll be fine. But Donnie Yen's
I,
character, the amount of backstory they added into his thing, they could do an entire 3 film series on just on him. That's what they did with most of these guys. Like Winston, for example, he's going to be now in the Continental. I'm not sure if we're going to watch it or not. but the show is already premiered as well. And
Oh, Premiere.
yeah, Continental.
It's
Yeah,
already
yeah.
there.
The story started. Yeah, yeah. So that they timed
Wow.
it with the ending of this one. But
Oh,
they're not the same
interesting.
actors, bro. It's the same. It's just the characters are there, but the
Who's
same
John
actors are
Wick?
not there. They'll have a younger John Wick, I think, and I think that he is his father figure because I think that the Russian lady to whom he goes in part three, and he tells him, "I'm the son of Belarus." And I think Winston, they have some kind of past because he was an orphan, he was picked, and then he gets trained. Because they've added all these sprinkles of things, like with the ballet school is, that's where they train everybody. They train all the assassins over there, and from there, I think Winston somehow has some kind of his past with him. Because if you look at it from the first time Winston meets him, he's talking to him as if he knows him for years. And why the favorism is there? Why save him again and
Because he's
again?
Baba Yaga from New York.
Yeah, no, no. I'm
It's a
saying
New
why
York
Winston
gang.
is trying to save him. Yeah, or yeah, New York guy, maybe our people. Yes,
Yeah, it's a New York gang.
but the other thing is this, right? The coming to the philosophy, we'll come to the technical aspects, but the philosophical side of it, I think it's a very quintessential Dante's Inferno. I'm not sure if you're familiar or not. There's a painting, or I think there's a poetry. There's a
There's a
poetry or a poem
painting.
of, and then they made a painting about it as well. The painting is based on I think the book or the poetry, and it's basically seven layers of hell kind of a thing. The journey of suffering, and this same thing is also in that Netflix German show, Dark. I highly recommend it. And there is a huge philosophical understanding of the biblical what do you call if you look at all the biblical stories, they basically it's in that part of the religion, Old Testament, New Testament, even Islam to a certain extent, it's all about suffering. It's about man's ability to grow comes from suffering, and you cannot run from your past. That whole thing is all part of that package. So I think that it is just basically John Wick suffering. From the time his wife died, he kind of just went back into that whole
And
suffering
lot
thing.
of
Yeah.
Christian symbolism. Lot
Oh,
of
lots.
Christian
Yeah,
symbolism. And
yeah.
a lot of talk about damnation,
And the other
being
thing they
damned.
don't do in the movie, right, which I really liked, is they do not put down any particular ethnicity or religion or anything. They didn't have nuns, with guns. They didn't have shit like, priests, pulling out Uzis and fucking fighting in the church and, uh, none of that stuff. No desecration or
The priest had a
joke about.
shotgun to
Sorry?
shoot. Priest had the shotgun in the
Yeah, yeah, priest
Belarusian.
had a shotgun. Yeah, yeah. So I think that the idea is that I was kind of surprised when the priest shot him. I was like, why did he do that? Like, is the priest a
It's
gangster or
just
what's going
because
on?
they're pissed off at him.
They're pissed off at him, but at the same time, I think he broke the code. You know, they want to kill him because he's bought uh, a bad name to the family or whatever, and now everybody's under. And plus, I think Piotr or whoever that character is dead because of him, because of John Wick. Because John Wick, a lot of
So,
people died, bro.
the philosophy is that if you break the rules, everything has consequences. So if you look at all the dialogues, it's like, oh, it's consequences.
Hmm.
You know, this is life. You know,
Cardinal rule. Yeah.
yeah, rules, rules. There are rules. And then I think my opinion is that we are witnessing. I feel John Wick 4 is, and I'm gonna give it a political spin. Okay, just hear me out. I think John Wick 4 is when there are no governments, what happens? These are
Privatization.
all, so these are all kings. These are all people who are not bound by control, by an authority. And they are on based, so they all agreed on a system that keeps them running, and that system is based on old ways of doing things. It's like, just part two where Santino comes to him and says, hey, listen, you made a blood oath. and you have to, and I, because of me, you're out. Now that you're back, I need this thing done because my sister is, taking the table, and I'm okay.
Yeah, but why
This
does he
is
have to backstab him? I don't understand.
because that's how the system is. Like, hey, she's my sister. It needs to look right. It needs to look like, you know,
someone else
uh,
killed. Someone else killed. I didn't basically call for it.
it's politics. Like, you kill her, and then I'll kill you because it's all, it's all freedom now. It's like, hey, I can do that on my own because of rules, right? But you have a bloodhood, so you can go and do this. And once you do that, there are no rules. There's no, I don't owe you anything. You don't owe me anything. But then you killed my sister. Now I have to kill you. So there's it's like a perpetuating. Only in India and Pakistan, there's this Khandani,
Yeah,
Khandan. They don't know
it's a bit of
why the
dynasty
hell
politics going on. Yeah.
yeah, they don't know why the quarrel is there. The people who grow up, they're not having this, oh, that guy did this 400 years ago. They just hate each other. So I think, John Wick is when there's God, okay? There are certain people who believe in God, and most people don't believe in any God, and they have no scruples. They have no like, especially in John Wick 4. If you look at it,
Hmm.
the Japanese guy. Sorry, I don't know his name, but the Japanese guy,
Yeah. Hirioko Sanada. Just call him Sanada.
amazing actor,
Yeah,
but
amazing actor.
he's willing to risk everything because of his code.
Hmm.
His code is over all the codes, you
Hmm.
know. And he's like, hey, listen, I'm gonna fight till the end. It's like, no, don't disrespect me, my friendship. This is what a friend does. And he continues stopping uh, the blind guy. So I think there were a lot of these interesting old school stuff that people have lost. And when normal people watch it, to them this might sound like it's like myths, but these were how people used to be. You
Hmm.
know,
Hmm.
this is how, like, I listen to this all history stuff. It's amazing when
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
listen to all this. Like, I'm bad at
Armchair
reading, so I
Historian, I
listen.
think, yeah, there are a lot of good channels out there. Armchair Historian.
Yeah, so I listen to Fall of Civilization. That was
Yeah.
my
No, there is another one. I
so
think there's a guy, he did the whole series of how all the civilizations fell. I'll send it to you.
yeah,
I think it's pretty good. Yeah.
yeah. Fall of Civilization is a YouTube channel I watch, and I listen to, and it's amazing. So I feel this is, if there was no government, or there was no democracy, right? Or if there was democracy and they would allow these things to happen, this is how the world would happen. This is
Hmm.
my perspective of it. Look at it. They have gold coins, you know. When if anybody shows a real gold coin, then it's like it's more than anything. It's not the money. They're not transferring money. It's actual gold. So it has this like almost post-apocalyptic kind of touch to it.
No government
There are,
features. Yeah.
there's no government. Like, all this killing happens. There's no cops. There's no
Yeah,
mention
because
of
that's why
it.
I feel like the first one is something that kind of not really canon. Yes, it is. But thing is that a lot of things you have to ignore in your mind because there is a cop in the first one. There are cops in the first one, in that world.
Mm.
So they kind of put a lot of things in that world in the first one. But then once they ended the story, they thought to themselves, you know what? For the next three movies, we need to kind of
Yeah,
plan
but
for.
because he got
Yeah.
ex, so I think that what they're trying to show is there's shit happening behind. closed doors that we this is secret society, okay?
Mm.
Different secret societies, and when normal public like us,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
we do not know.
Yeah.
So we do not know what's really going on, but there might be something like this going on behind the curtain, you know,
Mm.
where actual shits happen. So this is what I got to it, like, with the coins, with the blood oaths, bro. Over here nowadays, who respects, like Pathans? Remember in school back in the day, like Pathan ka zaban hai.
Correct. Yeah.
Pathan, once a Pathan gives his word, it's his word. There's
Yeah.
nothing comes
Above
like
everything. Yeah.
he's like, I'm not rich. I'm not gonna be rich, but my word is my word. Loyalty meant something. Now it's all fucking. Everybody is like a fucking. You know,
Mm.
I don't know. No, there's no
Yeah. I think.
chivalry. So I think
Yeah, but I think it's a form of masculinity that is in a full package. It includes responsibility. It includes consequences. Includes the overall idea of
consequences.
consequences, right? Includes the idea of the cardinal rule, sins, you know. And I think what has happened is that Winston had been going on about his life, daydreaming that what if I could get out of this whole fucking situation that they're squeezing me. And then he sees John Wick walk through, and that is
They're
where
not squeezing him. He's just the manager.
no, but he runs New York,
Eh,
isn't it? Isn't it how
Huh?
it works? That's how isn't that how it works? They run basically the entire town, like whoever the
He's
manager of
just
the
a
company
manager.
is.
See, so manager has
Yeah.
no say.
No, but
He
aren't
wants,
they running the entire state? So like he's running New York and that guy was running Osaka, stuff like that. So
but then
isn't that how
Marquis
it
was
works?
in New York too.
Yeah, but the thing with the whole marquee thing is, I feel that they, I don't know whether they explained it or did not want to explain it. It's like, where does the marquee come from? No, no, marquee will go anywhere. They can go anywhere. It's got nothing to do with New York. I mean, the assumption is that
So,
he's French and all that. Maybe he's just sitting in Paris or whatever, but he's he's got a special badge. He's like the right hand person of the table. He's got a seat, not seat at a table, but a window into the table. Nobody knows who sits on the table, for example, right? Nobody's been to the table. He's been to the table. He talks directly to the people on the table. So I think that a table thing, I don't know how it will come back. If they want to do another three movies, John Wick, they could do it. But the only problem is that
I, I
the
think, I
story will
think,
not be
I
the
think,
problem. Problem is not the
you know
story.
the
Problem is the action and the choreography. All that has to keep
it's
upping
all
itself.
it's
It's going to be very
ego,
hard.
dude. It's ego. Like, think about it. It's ego. The offer comes with Winston. He could have just said, "Listen, this is bullshit. I don't want to do this." But his ego came in the way, right? And he was like, he looked at the painting and was like, "Oh, I will be known as the marquis that got Baba Yaga," you know. And that's so. I think there's a lot.
So Winston is a now marquee or
No,
no
no.
no?
When Winston comes in with the
Oh yeah 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 with the
once he becomes
scroll.
part of the family,
Yeah yeah.
now that he has become part of the family, the Belarusians have taken him back in. That allows him now. He has a backing from the family, so now he is allowed to go on a duel.
Hmm.
But the duel needs to be accepted by the person whom he wants to duel.
Hmm.
Marquis has a lot of power, right? Because of their old wealth and old money and old bloodline, whatever, and their brutality. And uh, what do you say? He wants to actually stamp it as like he was someone great. When you read history, right? you see some certain kings, like for example, I'll give King Arthur. You know, we all know about King Arthur because he was one of those kings that actually was out and fighting and doing some big shit. But there are lots of kings who stay kings for like 15 years. Do you think that they didn't have issues? They didn't have their Dantes on Inferno. They
Hmm.
had it, but they never had the legacy. So this Marquis wants to have the legacy
Yeah,
on the table.
of
Like
being a king. He
if he,
wanted to get. He thought by doing all this, he would be able to get on the table. But thing is, he was an arrogant son of a bitch because from the beginning he had like a different costume every time you would see him. There'd be a different costume with to go with the couch. Like I made that joke with the friend that I was watching movie with.
who would
That
then
every time there's a
reply?
new couch, every time there's a new couch, there's a new suit. Like he's wearing a white suit, he's sitting on a white couch. He's in a stable. Like every time, basically, he's wearing any environment he is in. That suit is designed for him to be in that
Yeah, so
environment, basically, to move.
he's like that old
He's a very
school,
vanity,
old
yeah,
money,
yeah,
big king kind of like you have Mr.
aristocratic,
Lawrence
bourgeoisie,
Fishburne.
yeah, yeah.
So Lawrence, so it's old world versus new
The
world.
new, yeah. And this guy here, he was exactly what in Gladiator, Joaquin Phoenix character is like, the French
Yeah.
fella, the Gourmand, right?
Uh,
So, and he called himself like a doctor or some shit like that, like, I mean, doesn't behave like one. So he was a bit of a, but I don't know the counter that he had with Mr. Nobody with the knife. What is that trying to show? Is that trying to highlight Mr. Nobody as to his character, what kind of person he is? Or is it trying to do the French guy and show, okay, he basically is someone who is always negotiating, is always trying to be the alpha person in the room or whatever, something like that.
so
I didn't read
if
it
you look at
properly.
Mr. Nobody, the reason he's Mr. Nobody is because he does not have ego, right? And Marquis, the guy Marquis, has the biggest ego, but he knows that the guy with the bigger ego won't do the dirty job. And Mr. Nobody is smart enough to not kill John Wick. Because with John Wick is like, if you're not coming for me, I'm not coming for you. If you let me be, I'll let you be. So he knows that. Nobody knows that. So he's just watching it. It's like he's basically Mr.
He's a
Nobody is
tracker.
like a business.
Yeah,
He's a businessman. He's like,
businessman.
okay, how 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 much money am I risking to kill John Wick?
Hmm.
If 15 million is not enough, you know?
Yeah, so he keeps helping
So,
him survive so that he can get up to a
yeah,
certain point. Yeah,
yeah. So it's pretty
yeah,
cool. I like that. So it wasn't the character itself. I think that we all know the storyline was done in such a way that you were like, oh wow, man, this is such a cool concept that there's a character who is basically helping this guy who's an assassin, who's like supporting the person he wants to
yeah. But
assassinate
then
until the value becomes right.
correct. So, but that's what I think, right? So if you look at the first movie, that is basically a pilot. They had bunch of ideas, not very clear, and l- budgeting issues, obviously. And because of those budgeting issues, they came up with what the best kind of story they could, and they made it in such a way that if they don't make any more sequels, it's a perfect ending. Okay, so in that he goes back, he gets another dog from Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So in that one, because you just suddenly froze. In that one, what happens is that at the end, once he kills the bad guy, the place is next to I think, a dock, a port or something, shipping port. Once he gets out of the car, he's injured. He hears a bunch of dogs are barking, and he opens the shutter and he sees it's a shelter. There's all these dogs are there, and that's where he finds the brown dog, the one that the French guy, the French black guy, is looking after. Sharon is looking after for him in part two, three, and all that. So when they pull him back in again, when Santino comes over,
Is he there in John 4? I forgot.
he's there in John Wick 4. The dog is there.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
The dog is there, and I can't remember who's got the dog, but somebody's got the dog. I can't remember who it is, but the dog is there. It doesn't die. The dog doesn't die. So um, now Morpheus gets the dog. The bl-
Yeah.
the king, he inherits the dog, right? So thing is this, right? So um, in part one, William Defoe's character, his friend, he's hired to kill him, but he's actually helping him by making it look like that keeps missing him. So I kind of felt that Mr. Nobody was supposed to be that character, but they couldn't develop it that well, so they just went with the whole William Defoe simplified version. Because I mean, think about it. Why would you offer the role to William Defoe, which is very simplistic role? You know what I mean? And they're much older guys, you see. So what happened is that they offered roles to a bunch of people, and at that time, Keanu Reeves was the producer. He was not going to be acting in the movie. They couldn't find any other actor, bro. That's why they went with him. So that's why everybody else around him is much older than Keanu Reeves.
Mm.
That's what my theory is. Because that's what they said. They couldn't find another actor, and he was supposed to be an older gentleman anyway. So now, Mr. Nobody is basically nothing but a kind of a rehash, a version 2.0 of that assassin, if you think about it. But I don't know. I mean, these are all
Right.
the theories that people have made. But production design
It's
is
a good
another
movie.
thing. Yeah. So
It's a good
production
movie.
design. Yeah. So production design and cinematography. I kind of felt it kind of. I guess everything just went hand in hand. Photography, choreography, production design. But dude, the amount of light, the amount of visible light in the shots, and the amount of external light also that has been used, you can see it's very well done. You cannot. It's very hard to see where it's blending in, where the external lights outside the camera, behind the camera, and the lights that are part of the set design are
The
coming in and out.
practicals.
Yeah, the practical ones.
I
Um,
yeah.
yeah, go for it.
Since that's my world, anyways. So so they use this special lens called ARRI alpha DNAs. They're like these special lens that once you decide to go with ARRI, and they say what kind of movie you're looking at, what are you looking at in the movie, and then they will tweak the lens based on your desires. So they use that lens, and I think it's a full frame anamorphic. And so that thing, when practical light hits it, you have this crazy flare, you know. Um, so that's pretty cool. And also, what I feel Dan lost in, like I saw okay. So my history with John Wick was I was not watching any movies because I was like, most of it is crap. The last thing I watched that was interesting was Breaking Bad, and John Wick was like, just another action movie for me. And then people started talking about it, and I was like, okay, there might be something there, you know. I didn't, I, I still don't remember watching John Wick 1 properly. But the thing with John Wick 1 was it had this monotonous look, like this gray look to it
This
of a
monochromatic,
typical,
neo noir.
yeah, neo-noir, but monochromatic. So what I think in part two, if you look, as soon as part two comes, you see a lot of colors, so a lot of technology, like just to make a movie, right? Just to do colors is hard. You gotta have like gels on the this is back in the day when you had like hard lights and like hot lights, and then how do you mount it? So now there's a new technology of LED lights that are RGB. So it's just easy. I can go and just mount a light on a magnet
Yeah, and
somewhere or just tie
what
down.
about temperatures? Like you can control the temperature as well,
Oh yeah,
colors and all
everything.
that.
So
Yeah,
there's so if you've seen Everybody Everywhere, and so
all at
Everything
once. Yeah.
Everywhere All at Once. So there's a sequence where all the lights change in the corridor. So they're using the same kind of lighting, and they're like messing with the lights. Uh, so you can have, I think now you can have like, I don't know, hundreds of lights on an iPad. You can go, hey, I want this sequence. There needs to be this. So it's so easier to do it. Having said that, the way the underground cinematography was going was because this became so accessible. A lot of music videos started having like two-tone colors like purple, dark, contrasty purples and blues, and
Mm.
you see all that in music videos. So I think that obviously, you know, the DP on part two had access to more budget, so than a normal music video, and his aesthetics has always been, kind of contrasty. So to me, um, what makes me horny is that noir makes me horny any fucking day. Maybe black and white, maybe monochrome, maybe anything.
Just
I don't
high
care. As
contrast.
long as
Yeah.
I like that look, it makes me feel like I'm there because that's how reality is normally, especially in the dark, you know. So that's the cinematography. That's why John Wick 2, 3, and 4. In 4, they just went all the way out. Like it's
They
like
did. Yeah.
I saw it and I was like, wow.
And the other
Like
thing is that the three they call it
it's not
Parabellum, where John
it's
Wick 4 they just call it John Wick 4. You know?
JW4.
Yeah.
And when I watched it, I was like, that's it.
Yeah. It doesn't
I
need to be
don't have
called
to
anything.
watch any others. I don't have to watch, like, I didn't watch Dune. Okay? Everybody talks about the cinematography, and I'm like, yeah, sure, okay.
Dune
Uh,
is
so,
good. Once the second one comes out, you just watch it together. You know?
so to me, it's like when I saw John Wick 4, I was like, somebody's got to give Oscar to this guy because this is amazing.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter if it's
He's not just a director of photography, he's a director of lights as well. It's like,
no
yeah,
photography is director of
is lighting.
photography is like.
Yeah.
So I'll give you some example, and I think we spoke about it last time. Matrix 1, okay? Dark Knight. That was the last Wally Pfister, no, second last Wally Pfister film that Nolan did with Wally Pfister. Uh, it had this certain level of cinematic appeal. So uh, people say, hey, it's all the director and everything. No, I'm sure the director is there. He has to make the decision and um, take the film where it needs to go. But his job is to make sure everything's done right. That's a director. It's like a director of a business. Uh, he's not the one putting the lighting or coming up with the ideas all the time. It's the team around him. So I feel that uh, John Toll, people like John Toll who shot Matrix, if you look at whatever they shoot, other than what they're famous for, you will see a flair of cinema,
Hmm.
like a Hollywood cinema. That's specific for Hollywood films. Dan Lostesen is a Danish cinematographer, if I'm not mistaken. He's a Danish cinematographer. He did the Brotherhood of the Wolves or something, like some
Okay, been
movies
there for
in.
that long, is it? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So he's done all that, and he's done Shape of Water. He has done Nightmare Alley. Um, and so he's always been like a noir guy, uh, with the
Hmm.
contrast and stuff like that. And always his movies have been dark, from what I've seen. Um, so yeah, it's to me, uh, if Oscars is only going to like, what's the new movie by Wes Anderson? If the Oscar for cinematography goes to that guy, I'll be like, you know what? I have
Yeah.
my own Oscars. I don't
Yeah.
care about what other people say because it's no.
Mm.
This thing is much better. It can be why can't an action film have great cinematography?
Why not? Yeah, yeah,
You
exactly.
know, because it's harder to do. Because if you think about it, uh, the amount of camera movements, the amount of like like the Bourne, the Bourne series had the shaky camera stuff. That's lazy filmmaking. I do that on my, small films that I do when we don't have budget and we don't have sets, that we can have wide shots. But
Mm.
when people have wide, they have the budgets to show wide shots.
People who have money, even they are also not putting that much effort in, and that's the main.
Yeah.
That's another one, right?
So this idea that Dan Lawson did that with Chad is amazing. It's to me, I there has to be something so good out there this year
To top it,
that I
yeah.
go, okay, yeah, okay, all right,
And this
I
was
give
done
it.
during COVID and all that stuff, I think.
Maybe
Mm.
Oppenheimer, just because they're shot black and white on a 65 film camera, you know,
Yeah, but only I
uh,
think flashbacks are, or I think the scenes of
doesn't
youth,
matter. But
whatever,
just
certain
watching it
section
on
isn't there.
IMAX would be
Yeah, I
amazing.
mean, yeah, but I think that it's a lot of work, man. Like, like Oppenheimer, I don't think so the amount of work in terms of cinematography. I'm not saying they're lazy, but I'm just saying that that story does not call for that kind of a. It's a more of a actors. I think this time Christopher Nolan's going back to the whole prestige, the whole very script, tight script oriented storytelling rather than the big set pieces. He will have a set piece, obviously, of an explosion,
He
but
has
I
he
feel
has an explosion.
yeah, and but I think the problem is that you can only get so much out of it, in terms of pizzazz and wow factor. So I think that Tenet and all those they were technical movies, Inception. So I think now he's gonna go back to the whole thing of how to really master the art of storytelling. I mean, he's a true master of storytelling. So I think he will go back to the whole Prestige, Memento, Insomnia, that kind of stuff. Like, not a mindfuck movie. What I'm saying is a very drama based movie. I think he's this time he's really trying to go for an Oscar.
So
Or
I
at least,
think
yeah.
so I believe that yeah, I have to see something amazing this year to beat what I've
So
just
you
seen.
think
And
Oppenheimer is gonna be it?
see, listen, like I
Hard to
said,
tell.
just on based on cinematography, what I
Hmm.
saw was too
No,
cool.
I don't think so. It'll be able to be in cinematography, but overall as a film, I'm saying that I think it definitely has legs.
Of course,
Because I think the
as a
subject
film,
matter, yeah, as a film is gonna knock out of the park because the subject matter
of
itself
course,
is very important. It's a very political. It is a very political movie. It is gonna be a very very
right
political movie.
now.
That's the whole idea.
So now think about it. If Nolan is so in tune with the geopolitics,
Yeah.
what is Tenet about?
Mm-hmm. But I
You
think the
see what I
problem with
mean?
the problem with Tenet, it's not a problem with Tenet. The problem with the release of Tenet is it came out at a
Forget
time
about the release.
when they were,
Li-
if it came out before
Listen,
COVID, I think it was made for
listen.
a pre-COVID time. Don't you think? Don't you think he was thinking about a non-COVID future? You see what I mean? Now COVID has happened.
But we are back in the non-COVID future. Where's COVID? Nobody cares about it.
No, we are in a
Everybody,
post-COVID future.
yeah, but
you know,
we don't have like there's no COVID.
well, I think Oppenheimer is basically a post-COVID future, if you think about it, because we are now
I
going
think
back to the whole nuclear warfare and all
I
that.
think I think J Tenet is just like John Wick, but done by Nolan.
Or a James Bond by Nolan,
Yeah,
his version of James. Yeah, 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 yeah. I also saw
and
the same thing. Yeah, it has the same
so to
structure
me,
as well. It has a
yeah,
damsel
so
in
yeah,
distress, which is the Bond lady, has the open sequence.
but that what you're talking about is like the upper layer of the story. I'm talking on the deeper layer of the story. It's like similar to John Wick. There's a secret society
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
I think what we'll do is
they're
I'll
in a
watch
tech.
Tenet again and we'll have a chat about because we should have done that. We've done this is our 10th episode. We haven't got into it, but I guess we'll revisit that. Maybe in another few episodes
So,
we'll do a
okay,
Tenet
let
thing.
me put it this way.
Yeah, I need to
Okay,
watch it again, bro. Yeah.
okay, let me put it out there and see if that sticks. If it doesn't stick, I don't care. It's you come up with a better idea. Because when I saw Tenet, COVID was raging.
Hmm.
Our reality changed out of like nowhere. Everything stopped. We didn't know what the hell was going on. Uh, People were scared as fuck. I wasn't, but a lot of people were. And the idea of watching cinema was almost dead. Like the way the propaganda was going, I was like, what the hell? You're telling me I can't go to a cinema and watch a movie? Get the fuck out of here. Everybody's gonna be in their house streaming. And I was like, oh no. We should have there's a reason cinema is there and Tenet is gonna come and change it. But the problem with Tenet was it was too high concept. So in
Hmm.
my opinion, and this is something if we get the chance to watch it, Tenet is an absurdist action film in which in which
Hmm.
it's about egos that create the world, okay? And somebody with a bigger ego has control over time, and that's the Russian mobs. And this fight is where, there are a bunch of big guys who control the world, who basically dream this world, and uh, that's they have the tenets. Tenets means is the basis, the principle, you know. Well, that's what tenets mean. So why was like this hands always shown like the tenet. So
Hmm.
and whenever they say tenet, it's like the hand comes is the tenet. So it's like it's also about a secret society. So that's why I say that John Wick is the commercial version of Tenet. It's like a less convoluted version of Tenet, in
And the
my
other thing is,
opinion.
I guess, yeah, John Wick also is not trying to put down the writer, but if you want to make the, it's not easy, but the approach to making writing an action story, it becomes a little bit more flexible if you create your own world. You create your own world, whatever the world it is. Like you create your own version of a mishmash of a world, and in that world you create your characters and story, and then you can change the world based on how you want to tell the story. So John Wick is a bit like a fantasy world that they've created so that it can allow them to do all these things, which is a little bit much easier than taking a real world that is believable to the audience and they see it on everyday basis and setting a story within that and somehow
And
trying to
then
bend it.
doing like that, reversing it and all
That's
that
why it
concept.
is.
So,
That's why it is a much more gangster move on Nolan's part. That's what he did with Batman movies. You see, he instead of putting
yeah, but
Batman in a
but
John
Nolan
Wick
is
world,
not a stunt guy.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
No,
Yeah,
no,
correct. So
Nolan's.
instead of making Batman as a comic bookish movie, where basically they have their own world, they have a Gotham City that looks like Chicago. But when he made the movie, he had Chicago that looks like Gotham City. You see what I mean? It still had the positions of law and authority and power, the police, commission board, and all that stuff is going on, but they're all rooted in reality and the
Fucking
politics
every
behind
city
it
in
and
North
everything.
America has become Gotham City now.
Yeah, man, you saw what's happening in Chicago. You saw
Yeah.
the protest.
Uh,
Fuck, bro, what the hell is going on there, man? Actually, talking about all that violence that has been going on, um,
yeah.
and again in John Wick they showed that Viper gun, when they actually showed that Viper gun, which you're talking off screen, I in the cinema when I watched it, I thought to myself, it is a prop that they created for the movie. I did not know it's a real gun until
It's a
you
real
sent
gun.
me that Joe Rogan clip, where he
Yeah.
said he's
I don't know.
he,
Something happened to me, and I was like, uh, wait. I was getting my gun license. Like I did my gun training in 2020 when, you know, shit was like all in the air, and we were like, what the fuck is gonna happen? I need to get my gun training. I mean, if shit hits the fan, gives a fuck about gun licenses?
So
But
can
at
you tell
least
me a
you
bit
need to
about
know
the
how to.
gun training, the gun license? So you're gonna get it now, or you already got it?
No, I already did it like 3 years ago, almost like two
So
years ago.
how, what's the let's talk about the
So
purpose.
it's
In
so
Canada.
purpose of it is the purpose of it is like just to be basically register a gun or know that you know how to use a gun and like you have been trained, you know about the safety issues, like the way you handle a arm, you know, when somebody like what happened with what's his face, Alec Baldwin. The moment it happened, I was like, Alec Baldwin should be treated like everybody else because when we get our gun license, the first thing they tell us is if anybody hands you a gun, the first thing you do is check the chamber, know where the bullets are, make sure where everything is. Somebody might say, hey, here's a gun, there's no bullets in it. Don't trust your brother. Don't trust yourself. You put the gun down, okay? You're looking somewhere, you pick the gun up again, check it again. These are the rules of the game when you're
The
using a
cardinal
gun.
rule.
And
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
because you think about it, you
So what do you think happened with the whole Alec Baldwin thing then? We'll come back to the license
so
thing, but yeah.
yeah, I mean, I don't want to get into it, it's too political, but
No, of course
uh,
but he has been charged for manslaughter or something like that, isn't it? So
and I'm honestly, the poor lady got shot.
yeah,
I don't know what happened. There's a whole conspiracy behind it
oh, okay.
that
But that's our
there's
thing, bro.
yeah, I know, but that conspiracy does not interest me.
Doesn't
All
make
I know
sense
is
either.
next
Yeah,
time when
didn't make
I'm on
sense to me
set,
either when I. Yeah,
listen, next time I'm on set, there's a live gun. I'm gonna stay the fuck away from all these actors until I know there's someone like Keanu
especially the
Reeves
photo,
handling.
the director of photography got shot, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So I
yeah.
was
Gotta
like,
stay away from that shit, bro.
I'm like, hey, listen, if it's not Keanu or somebody
Yeah.
who is into guns, I'm
Yeah, but
give
how
me a
can a live
bulletproof.
bullet? How can a live bullet? Same thing
And
happened with Bruce Lee's son as well. He got shot with a live bullet.
listen,
How
listen,
can a live bullet end up in a chamber, bro? Doesn't even make sense.
listen, man. The rule is when you go, all these people who say no to guns, right?
Hmm.
And then go in movies and use guns, okay? I'm gonna be far away from those people. I want to
Hmm.
go in a movie where somebody who
So
uses
actors
them,
also have a gun license or something or training or something.
everybody
They
needs
have
to
to.
have it. Yeah, they have to. But
If you're
not
gonna
just
be
that.
on camera
But
using it, you need to have a
but
license.
so I did a short film last year, and it was in a nuclear bunker. So obviously we didn't have the money to actually have like a live gun because you need to have cops, you need to have like a lot of safety stuff, and because it was short film, we didn't have the budget. But
Cops
oh yeah,
on
of
set.
course, on set, on
But
any
why?
set, doesn't
Oh,
matter, doesn't
in
matter,
case someone goes crazy and he wants to start shooting with a real gun.
doesn't matter.
But even if
If you
there's no
have,
live ammunition, doesn't matter.
you will not be handed a live gun until there is a
Of
cop.
course.
That's
Okay.
it. It's in Canada.
So
The
even if it's
rule
got
is
blanks in it or whatever, same thing. Yeah.
so there's gonna be a guy who handles the gun in big movies, but generally, live guns, you need a cop there. So there will be a guy who's a gun wrangler. His job is to bring the gun, bring the bullets, the fake bullets, the blanks, and there still needs to be a cop there to witness it, to keep an eye on it, That's the rule for anything.
So okay,
So
so let's say hypothetically speaking, if Keanu Reeves, someone hands him the gun
Keanu
and
Reeves
he gives
have
them
to
black,
check
so he has to check it before
i-
he actually goes for it, is it?
of any like okay
That's why I
before
feel like in the movie they don't actually fire any weapons. They just do poo poo poo, pew, pew, pew. They just make sounds, and then they just add all the
I
flashes
no
and
they
everything
have
much later.
I'm
I
sure
think.
I'm
Yeah.
sure they have blanks because it looks real. Uh,
Oh, bro, I saw the behind the scenes. Nothing is going on there.
really?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, I don't know.
yeah.
Mm,
But that's the magic. The light also. There's a spark of light on people's faces and stuff like that.
There's
So
a lot of
maybe there is a
CGI.
because this is the thing. If you're this far away and I point the gun at your face and then run a blank, the flash and the sound is going to be so much that it's gonna hurt your ear. It's gonna take your eardrum out. I think because I've fired blanks. They're pretty loud, you know. But now coming back to the whole license thing, so you register, and then you're talking about it. You need to make sure every time someone hands you a gun, you
Oh
need to
yeah,
make sure that you're
that's
checking
the
the
rule.
safety.
It
So
doesn't
what's
matter.
next after that?
No, you basically get your license and then you get your training and then you apply. You get
So how
training from
long is
it.
the training for?
It's 2 days,
So is
two
this for
days, eight
certain
hours.
guns, certain
So
guns, or
yeah, so in Canada it's like first day is for non-restricted guns like hunting rifles, and then the second day is restricted, which is handguns. And
oh, okay,
yeah,
okay.
so I did that, and I just never had the time to apply for a gun license. But then I was like, I saw the pit viper, and I'm like,
You
shit, I
need to get
need
a
to
license.
buy this. I took out all the paper. I have my
So
paperwork here. I
so
have my
most people
paperwork.
who yeah, so most people who actually go and they go to the show. I mean, okay, apart from why get registered? I mean, sorry, why have a license? Why keep a gun? I mean, I think
So,
that's the question, overall
so
question I'm
in
asking.
Canada, so in Canada, and I'm gonna be nice. Um, the reason they have guns is because they want to do recreational shooting in ranges and like competition or hunting.
Or hunting. Yeah.
That's Canada. But in reality, most people have it because they want to keep themselves safe as well. But the way you
No, it
are,
makes sense. I mean, there's a lot of
but the way,
kidnappings happening here, man. In Sydney, they caught a entire gang the other day that was doing multiple kidnappings, okay, of
mm,
people in South Sydney, and they would tie them to a chair. They kidnapped a couple who were into crypto or whatever, so they obviously had a lot of crypto. They took them another 50, 60, or 100 miles away out from Sydney somewhere.
wow,
They tied them to a chair and then they started amputating their fingers and pulling out
what?
nails and all that. Torture, bro, torture. Kidnapping and torture. And now they did a raid and they caught all these people, but they haven't found the people at the high table,
The
if you know
table.
what I mean. Yeah. They only found these guys, these motherfuckers who are going out there and, dude, they're torturing people,
Oh,
kidnapping random
dude,
people.
just today it came out
Yeah.
that in Toronto there was $100 million heist at the airport of gold.
Such a Hollywood story, bro.
Dude, can you believe that?
Gold.
Gold.
Oh
So some
man.
shit's happening,
These all sound like psyop or internal agency bullshit
but
going on.
coming
Yeah.
back to John Wick 4, shit's happening behind the curtain that we don't know,
Correct, correct.
right?
Yeah,
But
but
all
here's the
I
thing,
know
right?
is metal
Yeah,
is gonna go up in value because a lot of
yeah,
people are looking for it's like fucking wild, wild west again. So
yeah.
it's kind of interesting what's happening.
So these once you have a license, you could
Hmm.
fire any kind of weapon and buy any weapon for home security, or
There's certain level, like I was researching on it, there's- you can have a certain level of power in a restricted gun.
okay,
In Canada, let me
okay,
repeat, in US, the reason you have a gun is because they uh, they have a God-given right to be free, and they need to be armed to the teeth
But
to
there are
protect
some
themselves.
families who have gone crazy with like fucking. I saw this one picture. I'm not sure if it's fake or real, of this family that is standing
Mhm.
on their porch and they've got like fucking guns all over the place,
But
on
but
the
but
porch, on the stairs, on the grass, fucking
okay,
like a
so
hundred weapons or something.
so hear me out. So in US, they have done that so that they cannot be controlled by tyrants.
Hmm.
The tyrants
Hmm.
can do politics, they can do everything, but they
Yeah.
can't come knocking on the door saying,
Hmm.
"Hey, you gotta do what we are telling you to do."
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
In Canada, you own a property, but you don't own a property. It just came out that Canadian
You
property,
just own a deed, a title, a piece of paper.
yes. So US is different. So for me, the only reason I was into is like if shit hits the fan, you need to know how to use a fucking gun.
Yeah, no, I mean, even if
Like
shit doesn't
it's
hit the fan, home invasion or something happens.
but home invasion if it happens, I can't if somebody invades my home and I take out the gun, the gun's gonna be in a
In a
separate
vault or,
case
yeah, okay, case,
or
yeah.
vault, and the bullets are gonna be somewhere else.
Oh, that's how you are supposed to
Yeah,
store it, huh?
you have to store it
Acha.
in a specific way. They need to be locked. So by the time the guy comes in, you have so the joke here is either you get shot or you go to jail. Because if you get shot, you're dead. Or if you take out the gun and you shoot the guy, then you go to jail. And that's how it is over here.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyways, yeah, so for some reason I was watching and I was like, that PW was a JW4 pit viper is amazing gun and not just a amazing prop gun like used in a movie. It's actually being used for competitions, the close quarter competitions. I'm getting into that world right now, so I'm not too familiar with a lot of things. But yeah, this year or maybe this year I'm hoping to go to the range, meet people, learn a little bit, figure
So
out
what
how
happens at
to
the range? They have exercises or competitions, or is it
you
just like how they show in
just
the
to
movies?
go. eh,
There's a target paper
Yeah,
way there, and you just
yeah,
put
you go in the
the headphones
yeah.
on, and
So there's some rules here which I'm trying to understand. But from what I understand is to get to a range, you need to first be vouched. Someone has to vouch for you. Oh, yeah,
oh, you serious?
yeah,
Shit.
yeah.
All
If you're
right.
bringing your own
Serious
gun,
business.
if you're bringing
Okay.
your own gun, if you're coming with somebody like you're coming there, then they will basically hand you the gun, but you will be chaperoned
Hmm.
to
Looks
go
like the
and shoot.
safest place to be be at the gun range. What do you call it? An armed society is a polite society. So I think,
Well,
yeah,
well,
everybody's armed over there.
I would argue that depends on the mindset. Like if they're a
Hmm.
bunch of idiots
Hmm.
who just follow orders, then yeah, if you're in the gun range, that's where you will be first shot at.
Hmm.
But yeah,
Hmm. Hmm.
generally people who use guns, they understand safety, and that's the main thing. The whole idea behind the gun training
Safety.
is
Training.
safety,
Safety.
and they used to do that with kids. Kids used to learn that at school. They took it out, yeah, back in the day
In
in
Canada.
US, not in
I say in
Canada.
the US. Like, how far back was that, bro?
That was like I
Really?
think 50s, I think 50s, 60s, yeah,
They used to
from what I
teach that
understand.
shit in school, yeah?
Yeah, how to
Oh,
operate a gun, because it's
we
just
need to look into that, man.
you need. It's not a toy,
Of
and it's
course
always
not.
good to
Yeah.
know. It's always good to know these things. So yeah, I'm into that kind of stuff because I like good mechanics and
So this Viper,
craftsmanship.
how much do you think this Viper is gonna cost?
or it's 7,000 US.
7,000 US and bullets, man. How much bullets cost? Man, you can really
Bullets,
tell I have no fucking idea, man. Yeah.
a bullet,
Because in
I don't
Australia,
know.
we have in Australia, I think firearms, but registry and everything. I think by
Oh,
the
by the
DA.
way, in Canada, once you buy an arm, you come in the once you take a license, you come in the registry, and that registry checks every day. If there's a violent crime close to your home,
Okay.
and they would be like, it will be flagged. That means they will check it, and if they find it suspicious, they will come to check on you.
Okay. Look for
Yeah,
residue
that.
on your gun and check how many bullets you have used. And
No, yeah, they will just come if they find suspicion. Then, but the fact that you're in a registry, it's like being tracked every day, knowingly.
well,
That's the.
at least one thing you can do is maybe hang. You know how in some houses you go and it says "Beware of the dog," right? Dog on premises. You can just write there. Can you write something like that? Like I have a gun. Don't come
But
fucking.
you're inviting. So I
Think
have a
about who you
neighbor.
come in. Yeah.
I have a neighbor, and he's like, "Oh, he's an old francophone." He's like, "I have an air gun," and I'm like, "Dude, if someone has a real gun, and if you take out your air gun,
Don't
don't
shoot
ever
him.
fucking do that,
Yeah. Don't do that.
because he's got a real gun,
Yeah. Yeah.
and he thinks you have a real gun. It's not gonna work. So you gotta be smart with those kind of things, you know. So yeah, it is what it is. If you live in Texas, you have no worries. You can carry an AR-15. You can carry God, or you can carry a gun loaded,
Without any registration, nothing.
conceal and carry. Yeah. No, I think it's a conceal and carry. I think it is conceal. I don't
Concealment
know.
must be there. I think you can't just carry it out in the open fucking
Open.
flashing
No,
it in front of everybody.
no, it's open carry.
Must be
Lo
still
since
locked in. Yeah.
Since COVID, lot of states in
Yeah.
United States of America has gone open carry. You can check it out. A lot of states have gone into open carry.
But why?
That because they just the crime levels are going up and people are getting like the amount of people bought guns and bullets. So when the zombies are out, bullets are gonna be money. You know,
Mm.
it's like, hey, you got a nice cow. I'll give you 1,000 bullets for it. You know.
Well, you know, actually, there's a show Last of Us. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and just by listening to the whole, the zombie word got me
Mm.
triggered. So there's a show Last of Us,
No.
and it has got apparently critical rave reviews and everything. And there's a particular scene in the show
Mm-hmm.
where there's a doctor in a panel and he's
Mm-hmm.
describing that how viruses work
Mm-hmm.
and how if the zombie apocalypse or something can happen, how would it happen? Dude, that sequence looks like it's out of a documentary, and it is
Mm-hmm.
so realistic. And the what do you call the theory, although it's probably scientifically maybe not possible, but in the movie world, just like how Nolan does his magic, right? You know how he creates a theory and it brings that validity to it, right? I'll show it to you, and then we'll knock off after that. And you listen to it, you go like, "Oh my shit! Looks like zombie apocalypse can happen." So, uh, um, Last of Us virus. Uh, oh mate, this is the one I think. Let me just. All right, let me screen share. Um, we need a Jamie, bro, but hopefully we get one day.
Yes, any kind of virus, but most probably something similar to influenza.
Because of air travel.
Through the air, coughing.
I'm sorry, I meant people on planes. That was something you described in your book.
Yes, a new virus in Madagascar, say, could be in Chicago within a matter of weeks, and we end up with a global pandemic. Pan meaning all, the whole world becomes sick all at once.
And Dr. Newman, you're also an epidemiologist. I presume the prospect of a viral pandemic keeps you up at night as well.
No.
No?
No.
All right, well, that's our show.
No, mankind has been at war with the virus from the start. Sometimes millions of people die, as in an actual war, but in the end, we always win.
But you, just to be clear, you do think microorganisms pose a threat?
Oh, in the most dire terms.
Bacteria?
No.
You like saying no?
Yes.
Not bacteria, not viruses, so...
Fungus. Yes, that's the usual response. Fungi seem harmless enough. Many species know otherwise, because there are some fungi who seek not to kill, but to control. Let me ask you, where do we get LSD from?
Where do you get it from?
It comes from ergot, a fungus. Psilocybin, also a fungus. Viruses can make us ill, but fungi can alter our very minds. There's a fungus that infects insects, gets inside an ant, for example, travels through its circulatory system to the ant's brain, and then floods it with hallucinogens, thus bending the ant's mind to its will. The fungus starts to direct the ant's behavior, telling it where to go, what to do, like a puppeteer with a marionette. And it gets worse. The fungus needs food to live, so it begins to devour its host from within, replacing the ant's flesh with its own. But it doesn't let its victim die. No, it keeps its puppet alive by preventing decomposition. How? Where do we get penicillin from?
Fungus.
Oh.
Dr. Schoenheist, you're in distress.
Fungal infection of this kind is real, but not in humans.
True, fungi cannot survive if its host
You need to share this with your group, bro.
94 degrees. And currently there are no reasons for fungi to evolve to be able to withstand higher temperatures. But what if that were to change? What if, for instance, the world were to get slightly warmer? Well, now there is reason to evolve. One gene mutates, and an Ascomycetia, Candida, ergot, Cordyceps, Aspergillus, any one of them could become capable of burrowing into our brains and taking control, not of millions of us, but billions of us. Billions of puppets with poisoned minds, permanently fixed on one unifying goal: to spread the infection to every last human alive by any means necessary. And there are no treatments for this, no preventatives, no cures. They don't exist. It's not even possible to make them.
So if that happens,
we lose.
That was such excellent piece of writing that when you're watching it, you think to yourself, like, shit, is this real or is this fiction? You know? Stranger than fiction. So in order to set up the story of The Last of Us, in the first episode, this small sequence is there. That has that. This is exactly the style of writing that Jonathan Nolan or the great writers have. They set a world, and in that world, they create this theory or whatever it is. Like Inception follows this exact same formula. You know, you say that this is how the world is, and these are the rules of that world, the physics or the properties of that world, and in that you create a story. So what they've done is there is a story of Last of Us, and it's got nothing to do with these doctors. The doctors are just there to set up the world for you, to convince you that if an ant ke saath agar ho sakta hai, it can happen with the human brain, the human mind. Like how the fungus, there is that Stamets, Paul Stamets, the mushroom guy. He came on Joe Rogan. He has a documentary on Netflix as well, where he talks about that. According to his research and research of a lot of doctors, they believe that the fungi, the mushrooms, have been directly responsible for the evolution of man itself. You know, the sacred mushroom and the cross, ye sari books bhi hain. So in reality, what he's basically saying is that imagine a fungus, just like a disease, evolves because it needs to survive, and it clings onto your brain or your body, and then, I mean, that's where maybe the zombie apocalypse will come from, if it does. You know?
Wow.
Yeah, it sounds
That's
like
why
a
you
very
need to have a
cuckoo
gun.
theory. Yeah, that's why you need to have a gun. That's right. You know. All right, bro. Anything else? I think call it a day.
Yeah, it's a gun show.
It's a gun show, bro. That's it. So let us keep me posted on when you do get your
And
registry.
the pit
So
viper.
yeah, the wiper. Yeah, we'll talk about it often.
All right, buddy.
So all right, have a good one, bro. Nice chat.
You too.
See you, man.
All right, buddy.
Bye.
See ya.